South Korea's top office says the U.S. leader will be here in late June for talks with President Moon Jae-in on North Korea trade and other pressing issues. Great news for South Korea's automakers. Reports say the Trump administration will exempt the country from auto tariffs of up to 25%. Plus, hot under the collar. It's only mid-May, but it's feeling more like mid-July in South Korea as temperatures are set to soar past 30 degrees Celsius across most of the country. So, our starting point this morning, we now have confirmation that US President Donald Trump will be making his second visit to Seoul in the coming weeks for a summit with President Moon Jae-in. The main focus of their discussions is expected to be North Korea and getting the denuclearization process back on track. Our Shin Se-min starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump will make a stop in Seoul in late June during his trip to Asia for the G20 summit in Osaka, as concerns simmer that nuclear talks with North Korea are on the brink of breakdown. South Korea's top office says Presidents Moon and Trump will likely discuss the nuclear negotiations as well as ways to strengthen their bilateral alliance. Moments after the Blue House's announcement, the White House confirmed President Trump's trip to Seoul and said the leaders will continue their close coordination on efforts to achieve the final, fully verified denuclearization of North Korea. A spokesperson for South Korea's presidential office added that a detailed schedule for what will be their 8th summit is still in the works, an indication that it's still unclear whether Trump will visit Seoul before or after the G20 summit in Japan, a meeting that's scheduled for 2 days from June 28th. The announcement of President Trump's visit to Seoul comes after Pyongyang's recent test firing of missiles and projectiles. The regime's launching of short-range missiles are believed to have violated international restrictions championed by the U.S. president. North Korea had tested 2 short-range missiles and fired a series of projectiles this month, the first such move by North Korea since it tested an intercontinental ballistic missile in late 2017. President Moon said the regime's actions are a way of showing its discontent that the second North Korea-U.S. summit in February ended with no deal. And President Trump, too, downplayed the missile test, calling the launches very standard stuff and said he didn't consider them a breach of trust. With President Moon having already proposed another inter-Korean summit shortly after the Moon-Trump meeting in Washington last month, President Trump's visit to Seoul could serve as catalyst in bringing about a third North Korea-U.S. summit in the near future, breathing fresh life into the stalled nuclear negotiations. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The top nuclear envoys of the United States and Russia spoke over the phone on Wednesday to discuss continued efforts on the denuclearization of North Korea. The talks come after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, following his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin this week, said the two countries share the same objective on the North. Lee Seung-jae reports.
U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun and Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Igor Morgulov held their phone conversation Wednesday as part of continued U.S.-Russia discussions on their shared goal of the denuclearization of North Korea, including on the need to maintain full implementation and enforcement of existing sanctions until the final, fully verified denuclearization of North Korea is achieved. According to Russia's foreign ministry, the two sides also discussed ways to further promote the political and diplomatic process. The conversation comes as Washington and Moscow have shown gaps in their view of how denuclearization should be achieved. The U.S. insists on continuing pressure through sanctions, while Moscow advocates an easing of the sanctions in exchange for denuclearization steps. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who held a near 2-hour-long meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday, says they spoke at length about North Korea after Putin held a summit last month with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Vladivostok. The top U.S. diplomat added the United States and Russia share the same goals on North Korea and hopes the two sides can find ways that work for everyone. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump will delay his decision on whether to impose tariffs on imported cars for as long as 6 months and will exempt South Korea from new levies. Bloomberg reported Thursday that Trump will give Japan and the EU 180 days to limit or restrict car and parts imports into the U.S., according to a draft executive order. The draft also said South Korea, Canada and Mexico are exempt from future tariffs, with South Korea's exemption coming after the two countries renegotiated their free trade deal. The report comes after administration officials told Reuters that President Trump will make a formal announcement on Saturday, the original deadline for the decision on whether to impose auto tariffs of as much as 25%. A U.S. Commerce Department report in February claimed auto imports were a threat to national security as they stopped domestic producers from investing in new technology. A famous South Korean singer has taken to the stage in Beijing for the first time since 2016. 3 years ago, the Chinese government banned all K-pop stars from performing in China after Seoul decided to deploy the U.S. THAAD missile defense system. Could this mean the ban could be lifted going forward? Kim Hyo-sun reports.
World-famous K-pop singer Rain was invited to perform at the Asian Culture Carnival held in Beijing on Wednesday evening on the sidelines of the Conference on Dialogue of Asian Civilizations. It is being seen as a sign China could be lifting its ban on South Korean contents that was imposed in 2016 following Seoul's deployment of the THAAD missile defense system. This is the first time a Korean celebrity has taken to the stage to perform at an official event since then. Rain performed side-by-side with Singapore's Lin Junjie, a famous singer in mainland China. The event drew over 30,000 people, including high-level Chinese government officials and various international delegations. It was also televised live on China Central Television. Chinese President Xi Jinping also attended the event, stressing in his congratulatory speech that Beijing can contribute to making a beautiful future, together with Asia and the rest of the world. The fact a K-pop star took part in a large-scale event in Beijing could have significant meaning going forward. Analysts also predict that with the Chinese leader's possible visit to Seoul before the end of the year, K-pop stars could be able to perform in China again. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
South Korean banking group Hana Financial has won an international arbitration case against American private equity firm Lone Star Funds over its purchase of KEB Hana Bank, accusing Hana Financial of intentionally lowering the price of KEB Hana Bank internationally. Lone Star filed a lawsuit at the International Chamber of Commerce in August 2016. Lone Star had demanded Hana Financial to pay $1.4 billion in compensation. The International Court reportedly informed Hana Financial of the ruling on Wednesday. Lone Star purchased a 50.5% stake in KEB for $1.2 billion before selling a 51% stake to Hana Financial for $1.7 billion. South Korea's chief prosecutor has laid out the prosecution's position on the investigative power reform bill that was put on fast track at South Korea's National Assembly. Speaking at a press conference this morning, Moon Moo-il vowed to make systematic changes to the way the prosecution handles investigations and make them more transparent to build public trust. However, he said he still opposes the latest reform bill, saying it doesn't coincide with the democratic principles and that it could encroach on basic rights. The revised bill seeks to give police the authority to close investigations and remove the prosecution's authority to control police investigations. Under the current law, prosecutors have the authority to close investigations, indict suspects and seek arrest warrants. Late last month, 4 political parties, excluding the main opposition party, fast-tracked a series of key bills, including the one aimed at redistributing power between police and the prosecution. A heatwave warning was issued on Wednesday afternoon in South Korea's southwestern city of Gwangju after the temperature there soared to over 33 degrees Celsius. This is the earliest date such a warning has ever been issued in South Korea. Park Hee-jun tells us more.
South Korea's first heatwave warning of the year has been issued in the southwestern city of Gwangju. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, the high on Wednesday at around 3 p.m. was 33.1 degrees Celsius. Many parts of the region are expected to see temperatures of over 33 degrees on Thursday as well, leading to the warning, which is issued when temperatures surpass 33 degrees for at least 2 consecutive days.
Temperatures today rose sharply because of a combination of a warm southeasterly wind caused by high pressure in the east and strong sunshine in the daytime.
The warning comes at the earliest time of the year since the system was first implemented in June 2008. The previous record was on May 19, 2017, when a heatwave warning was issued in Daegu and some parts of the Gyeongsang-do provinces. But forecasters say this does not directly determine what kind of summer we're going to have.
Temperatures are expected to be similar to or higher than last year, and due to the cold air coming down from the upper atmosphere, the gaps between day and nighttime temperatures are expected to be wide.
The weather agency says that early summer weather will continue throughout the week until rain falls in the southern regions on Saturday. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Now, it has emerged that just months before a second deadly crash of a Boeing 737 MAX airplane, American Airlines pilots angrily confronted a Boeing official about an anti-stall system suspected to have contributed to 2 fatal crashes. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Hong Yu. So we hear this audio was obtained by the U.S. news network CBS News. Tell us more about it.
Yes, Mark, the audio was recorded at a tense meeting between the American Airlines Pilots Union and Boeing over an anti-stall system that may have been factors in 2 deadly crashes. The meeting that was recorded came 4 months before the second crash of a Boeing 737 MAX jet happened in Ethiopia. One pilot is heard saying that they deserve to know what is on their airplanes, as they claim none of them knew the system was on the airplane, indicating they were not aware of the 737 MAX's computerized stability program. Boeing has been criticized for not disclosing how the anti-stall system worked in order to avoid costly retraining. The vice president of Boeing, Mike Sinnott, who was at the meeting, is heard claiming what happened to Lion Air was once-in-a-lifetime type scenario. On the audio, a Boeing official is heard telling pilots it would make software changes, perhaps in as little as 6 weeks, but didn't want to hurry it. The fix was still being developed when the second 737 MAX crashed in March, leading to the worldwide grounding of the plane. The recording's release came as the U.S. House Transportation Committee opened a hearing into the role of Boeing's regulator, the Federal Aviation Administration, in certifying the MAX. U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order to declare a national emergency to protect U.S. companies over threats against American technology. The White House on Wednesday said the move is to, quote, protect America from foreign adversaries who are actively and increasingly creating and exploiting vulnerabilities in information and telecommunications technology infrastructure and services in the United States. Although the executive order will effectively bar U.S. firms doing business with Chinese telecom company Huawei and its efforts to expand into critical 5G market, the executive order has reportedly been in the works for more than a year. Germany and the Netherlands have suspended military training operations in Iraq as the U.S. warned of increased threats from Iran-backed forces amid heightened tensions in the region. A German Defense Ministry spokesman said Berlin had no indications of its own of any impending attacks on Western interests by Iran and said the training programs could resume in the coming days. Germany has 160 soldiers involved in training Iraqi forces trying to contain Islamic State militants, and the Netherlands has 169 military and civilian personnel in Iraq who are helping to train Kurdish troops. The announcements came after the U.S. put troops on high alert and removed non-emergency diplomatic staff from Iraq.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information that we hope is useful for your everyday life, whether you are in Korea or somewhere else around the world, particularly today if you are coming to Korea in the future. Because today we're going to focus on something that's related to culture somewhat and to explain what's going on in South Korea. And one story in particular, we have our Won Jong-hwan in the studio with us. It's great to see you again, Jong-hwan.
Hi, Mark.
So what do you have for us today?
So Mark, as you remember, last time when I was here at the studio about a month ago, we had a conversation on how foreigners can get better in Korean, focusing on those foreign Korean language experts sharing their own tips.
Yeah, that's the time where I spoke Korean on live TV here. I think that's the most nerve-wracking experience in my 7+ years at Arirang. But no more Korean language from me today. Explain what you're going to tell us.
So, well, today's topic is not so much different from the previous one as it involves language again.
Okay.
So let's say, what if your Korean language is not so fluent, or what if you simply just visited the country for the first time without knowing or having any background knowledge of the country?
Yeah.
You definitely would need help with the communication with locals.
The thing is that even if your Korean is fairly advanced, there are certain situations where you do need very advanced Korean to get your point across, right? So
yeah,
this is a useful service.
Yes. So today I would like to talk about an interpretation service specifically provided for foreigners or even to locals who encounter language difficulties in Korea. So without me going any further, let me first show you the case of this student from Spain who tries to arrange a contract in a local mobile phone network service center but was unable to communicate with a dealer. The dealer, who remembered a particular 8-number digit, calls for help to a Korean volunteer who picks up his phone while he's working out at the gym.
Yeah, I would like to make a contract with this company of mobile phones because I would like to have a free calls and unlimited giga.
Okay, and do you have the ARG card with you?
Yeah.
Okay, can you give this phone back to a Korean man, please? So based on 2-year contract, unlimited data and voice call, the monthly cost will be 51750 Korean won.
150?
No. 51750.
Okay, for the whole period?
Yes, for 1 month. And this is based on 2-year contract basis.
Okay, should I have any discount for being a student or no?
Okay, I'll ask him. Can you give this phone back to him, please?
Yeah, of course.
We didn't have time to stay until the end, but I heard that the girl successfully managed to sign a contract with the dealer.
Well, I thought it was quite interesting that he didn't even stop exercising while he was taking the call.
That's how he's very into this language.
Right, I mean, double tasking
Exactly.
is good, yeah.
Yes. So actually signing a good phone service deal is difficult even for us as well. So imagine how hard it would for a foreigner who visit the country for the first time without speaking any Korean language.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, very difficult indeed.
And that is why the BBB Korea, an interpretation service, is here for the rescue. BBB Korea is an NGO that provides 24-hour free interpretation service for all. So the idea was first hatched back in 2002 when a lot of foreigners visited Korea for the World Cup. When a speaker is experiencing hardships understanding the language, they can dial BBB to ask for an interpretation through a device everyone carries, a mobile phone. And if you do so, over 4,500 volunteer interpreters who can speak 20 different languages are there to provide you the help you need. So normally it works like this way. Interpretation is offered via a 3-way phone call with a foreigner, a Korean speaking with a foreigner, and a BBB volunteer interpreter who is free to take calls. From asking directions to getting medical information in emergency situations, the volunteers of BBB deliver important messages from a speaker to a speaker in real time on 24-hour basis. And a person who is currently in charge of running the service explains why BBB Korea has been loved by so many people for more than 17 years.
We have some guidelines in which we block people who intend to use our service for their own profit. Our existence is purely for the people who need urgent help, and for those who cannot afford an interpretation in real time due to cost or situation.
According to her, a call is received for every 10 minutes. Calculated into per year, it is over 100,000 calls being fielded by the volunteers.
Yeah.
As you can see from the numbers of calls asking for help, the volunteers are the key to this service. So I met again with the volunteer who helped the Spanish girl before and asked him what is there to take to work as a volunteer.
Yeah, basic understanding of English is a prerequisite, but on top of that, I think that most valuable things for us to do is one is a sense of duty, and the other one is enthusiasm. I think those two are the necessary prerequisites for us.
You can also reach to these volunteers through a few touches on their smartphone application, which was first introduced in 2013. And they aim to better support volunteers who are working on their each allocated time zone to gradually solve the language barrier, making South Korea a better place for foreigners to visit and, of course, for locals to welcome foreigners as well.
Yeah, did Mr. Lee there mention how many hours a week he volunteers to this service?
He receives calls for like 2 or 3 times every week.
Every week?
Every week.
Okay, well, he certainly was very helpful to the Spanish student getting a phone contract, because that is one of the, like you say, one of the essential things you need, and something that's also very difficult to negotiate if you don't speak Korean. But just once again, if you missed the number that came up on the screen, it's 1588 5644, right? That's BBB Korea. So beside BBB Korea, are there other similar services here in South Korea which foreigners can use regardless of their Korean skills, from someone with no Korean skills all the way through to someone who perhaps doesn't know just a few phrases that would come in useful?
Yes, indeed, Mark. The Korea Tourism Organization has a similar one, the phone interpretation service, where you can call 1330, much shorter.
Right.
And about where you can find those further information, you can get information at international airports and information centers and tourist spots. And sometimes local police stations, hospital, or phone dealer shops knows the number already, so you don't need to worry too much about the language barrier when you come to South Korea.
Okay, so BBB Korea is 24/7. What about this KTO, this Korea Tourism Organization?
24/7.
That's
24/7. But only for the certain languages.
Okay, so BBB Korea is 20 languages, and
24/7.
Korea Tourism Organization, a select few, but I'm sure the most widely used languages here. Sounds great, wonderful service. We have all these people coming to Korea these days, and this is something that will be very vital for them. And it's great to know that it's available, like many things here in Korea, 24 hours a day. Jongwan, thank you very much for your report, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.
Yes.
Now, we are going to take a brief look at some cultural events that are taking place across South Korea.
Good morning. Today is expected to be the hottest day of the season so far, with a lot of sunshine and highs hovering at around 30 degrees Celsius across much of the country. While Gwangju is still under a heat wave advisory with an expected high of 32 degrees Celsius. And air quality will be poor. Ozone levels will be high, so children and senior citizens need to avoid outdoor activities if possible between 2 and 5 p.m. Children are at greatest risk from exposure to ozone because their lungs are still developing. And what's worse, fine dust levels will be high in central and western parts of the country. Southern provinces will see some welcome rain in the forecast for the next 2 days, but Seoul will remain dry and hot until Sunday. Then we'll have some relief next Monday with nationwide rain in the forecast. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now. Just a reminder, our next news is coming up at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
Following the Indo-Korean summits and the North Korea-U.S. summits, a journey toward peace on the